went quiet for like 10, 15 seconds, and he just went, "Do you know that wanker James Pearce?" And I just kind of, "Oh, I've heard of him." And then he just
went... It wasn't easy because the United job didn't last long for him.
Lost Penny Lane, football on the brain, a stew called Scouse, Lacoste, North Face or Berghaus. It's the Scouse House, it's the Scouse House.
Want to thank one of our supporters, English Rose Gardens. I know it sounds a little bit EDL. It's not. It's John English, a good mate of mine. He's done my garden and he's done it superbly well. It's summertime. Everyone needs to have the garden in shape, don't they? You don't want the neighbours looking over thinking what's going on there next door. They've got no standards whatsoever. I've got the solution for you, English Rose Gardens. Get on his Instagram, see some of his work, get in touch, free quotes. You know it makes sense. English Rose Gardens. First things first, James. You've been in Liverpool for a while, but where is that accent from?
It's from Bath in the southwest of England. Yeah, that's where I grew up. Although I think I now have officially spent more of my life in Liverpool than down there. I came up here as a student for 3 years in 1996, and then moved back home. Worked on the local paper down there for 5 years, and then joined the Echo in 2005, the month after Istanbul, and I've been here ever since. So no, not a Scouser myself, but I've got two little Scousers of my own that are born and bred.
Well, we might get into this over the series, of what is a Scouser, because I'll tell you, I know people have where specific boundaries are, etc. If I meet a lad in Beijing wearing a Liverpool shirt, he's a Scouser to me, James. So if you spent more of your life in Liverpool, I think you're a Scouser, mate. Do you have a feeling of being certainly like an honorary Scouser at this point?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I'm certainly very proud to tell people that I live in Liverpool and how much I love the city and how glad I am to be bringing up my kids here. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I love going back home to visit family and friends down there, but I'd be lying if I said I ever wished I was still down that way, because Liverpool's an incredible city, and it's been great actually seeing how much it's changed for the better as well. When when I was a student up here in 96, 97, 98, 99, it just wasn't really a conversation then whether any of me and my mates were going to stay around, because there just didn't seem to be the opportunities job-wise. And, the city had the Albert Dock, but not an awful lot else in terms of regeneration. And then, moving back up in 2005, it was already, wow, God, this has changed so much. And then that's just continued happening, that transformation, which has been brilliant to see.
Sure. So, I mean, I'm learning things already. So you came to Liverpool as a student initially, and then moved back.
Yeah.
Home was that to work on, the Bath Inquirer.
The Bath Chronicle.
The Bath Chronicle.
Yeah.
What was some of the famous headlines the Bath Chronicle had, James?
Well, I was covering the non-league football, so I was mainly traipsing around the kind of the south of England in my clapped out F-Reg Nissan Micra,
nice.
Covering Bath City in the Southern League Premier Division, and then the National League South as it is now.
Who were Bath City's top players at the time, James? Talk us through them.
Well, we had it was an ex-Bristol Rovers winger called Frankie Bennett.
Oh yeah.
He was one of the big star men. I mean, there hasn't been too many for Bath City over the years. I think Jason Dodd, who some people remember him from Southampton, he was. I'm still right in saying he's still Bath City's record sale. I think that was like 20 grand or something.
Right, yeah.
But it was. I mean, it was obviously a world away from covering Premier League football, but it was a brilliant grounding, because essentially the basics are still the same. Like, you still have to create relationships with people and chase stories, and just slightly different surroundings.
Yeah, are you would you say is Bath City? Is it like a place in your heart? Are you a Bath City fan on the the low?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, not surprisingly, over the years, like following Bath City's fortunes and being a passionate Liverpool fan has never really clashed. I don't think there's ever much chance in my lifetime of it happening either.
You might do a pre-season tour around the West Country at some point.
I mean, the closest it ever came actually was when it was 1992 when Liverpool were en route to winning the FA Cup that season. They played Bristol Rovers away, and Bristol Rovers ground shared with Bath City at the time.
Right.
So that was a big thrill. As what was I 14 then, having Liverpool playing in Bath.
Yeah.
And that was I was there that night when it was actually the tie was called off because of a frozen pitch initially, and then replayed on a night. And I've been used to being in that ground that usually with 300, 400, 500 other people. Suddenly it was a 9,000 sellout that night.
Yeah.
But my dad's still a season ticket holder at Bath City. I used to be a ball boy as a kid. But
did you ever start a football manager or a championship manager game as Bath City manager?
I did as a student.
Yeah. Did you lead them to glory with the Premier League team by the end of your reign?
I'm not sure I did. I don't think I was actually. I had to ditch management. It just wasn't for me.
Jason Dodd just didn't pull up any trees for you.
I was too loyal to them.
Liverpool fan then from Bath. How did that come about? Just
so my aunt is a Scouser. So she was from the city, and she relocated down to the south. And when I think it was about my 5th birthday, she bought me a Liverpool shirt and scarf. And I was born in '77, and as I was going to primary school in the early '80s. It probably seems a bit hard for people to believe now, but in my primary school, you were either Liverpool or Everton. Because it was, you're talking about 83, 84, 85, 2 best teams, not only in England, but arguably in Europe at the time.
Yeah.
So it started from there, really. Yeah, it wasn't one of those ones where it wasn't like my dad was dragging me along. It was actually the other way around. It was me pestering my dad and saying, when Liverpool were playing Southampton away or Villa away, please, can you get tickets? Please, can you take me? And then, 1990, which was, I was 12, as like a birthday present. He sorted me out tickets to go to Anfield for the first time. So that was Liverpool 2, Chelsea 0, Rush and nickel.
Nice.
So that was the first time I got to go to Anfield. And then, to be honest, coming up, all the way through senior school, I kind of made my mind up that whatever Liverpool uni had to offer, if I could get there, I would do whatever course they'd let me into, because I just loved the idea of living up here and being able to go to the games regularly, week in, week out for the first time, and that was what I was able to do under Roy Evans.
So about 7 or 8 was it when you came to Anfield for the first time?
So I was a bit older than that.
Oh.
So it was like October 1990. So 12.
Oh right,
12
okay, yeah.
I would have been.
Yeah.
But been to various away games down south prior to that.
Yeah.
But that was the first Anfield trip.
I think mine was 95. Liverpool 0, Leeds 1, Brian Dean. I'm still here though. I'm still here. So James, you talked about coming up to then Liverpool. The University of Liverpool, was that right?
Yeah. 96, I did a degree in history and politics. So at the time...
Exclusive.
So at the time, journalism degrees were quite new. And the editor, I'd done work experience on the paper in Bath, and I'd asked for some advice, and he said to me that, to be honest, at the moment, journalism degrees are so new that I would actually recommend just do a degree in whatever you enjoy and you're passionate about. And if you still want to be a journalist after that, then, there's loads of postgraduate courses, there's trainee programs that papers run that you can get onto. So that was how I did it, really. And then, went away backpacking after uni, as a lot of people do, for 4 months or so, and then while I was away...
Where did the young James Pearce end up?
What was it? Singapore, various places in Thailand, on the islands, and then to Australia, Perth. Slightly naively.
You love me in Perth, by the way.
Yeah, I love Perth. Yeah, got a flight from Perth to Alice Springs, thinking that Ayers Rock was at Alice Springs.
Is it not?
No,
I thought that was. Yeah, I didn't think we'd be talking about where Ayers Rock is on this podcast. But
so I remember wandering around Alice Springs asking someone where Ayers Rock was. I thought it was quite big that you might see it if it was nearby, but they were like, it's about 400 miles that way.
Right.
So that was a bit of a faux pas.
That's a common misconception, is it?
I don't know whether that's a common one
Well,
or
I
whether
certainly
I'm just
thought it was.
stupid.
No, I thought it was. I thought it was me. I mean, I might have checked though before I went, just to be double sure.
Yeah, and then yeah, to Sydney, Melbourne, and then I had one of those round the world tickets that I could have gone on to New Zealand and the Cook Islands and Fiji and all the rest of it. But actually, while I was away, the paper in Bath offered me a job, like a trainee program. But the catch was I had to come back by the May of 2000. It would have been. And to be honest, it wasn't much of a decision because I would have only stayed away for another couple of months, and I thought, I can't be turning down an opportunity like that.
Is being a Liverpool FC reporter at the Liverpool Echo sort of in your mind's eye? Is that what you're going for at that time?
It was really, yeah. I mean, it was a bit of a pipe dream back then, but that was. I've still got. It's quite sad, really, but I've still got like scrapbooks from like the late '80s of kind of watching games on TV and like doing my own little match reports, scribbling them down in pencil in these scrapbooks, and especially games I'd go to. You stick the program in and the photos you took, and write your own little report. And I was just fascinated at the idea that I'd go to games with my dad and be looking at the press box and thinking, I can't believe these people actually. This is work. Like how can this be work? Going to watch a game of football and speaking to people afterwards and writing about it.
Do you still feel the same about it now?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you have to remind yourself how lucky you are because it's easy to get dragged down with, like any job, the kind of the kind of demands of it. Every so often it does pay to take a step back and think, I don't have to get a proper job one day. Imagine having to do that. So I try and string this out for as long as I can.
Yeah. So let's touch then back onto your university days before we move on. University in Liverpool. Where was your stomping ground and where did you hang around? And
so first year was at Rankin Hall in the Carnatic Halls up on kind of Elmswood Road in South Liverpool, Egbert Way. Which I don't actually. I think because I drive past it sometimes on the school run now, and it's all shut off now. I think someone told me it had been bought as like a police training college or base or something. I think it's been, but it's certainly not full of students anymore. Which is probably for the best because I must admit my room when I first moved into that room in Rankin Hall and. You just had your little single bed bolted to the wall and a sink. It did feel like I'd been sent down for doing something wrong. And you were sharing a shower with about 18 other people.
Every night?
Well, once a week. And then so it was a bit of a relief to be able to move out into a house. And then eight of us lived in a house just off Lart Lane, which was absolutely brilliant in the second year. And then not far away again in the third year, just off Ullet Road near Smith Down Road, which is obviously a big studenty place. Yeah. And then and in fact that was why kind of when I came back up and got the job on the Echo in 2005, it was I loved that Lart Lane area. It's just and I've lived 5 minutes walk from Lart Lane ever since.
Well, you were saying how much it changed between your first stint and your second stint.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at Lart Lane now and how bustling and thriving it is, and all the amazing restaurants and cafes, there weren't anything like the variety and that you see now. I think there was certainly more crazy pubs back then. I think there was one that some people might remember called the Masonic on Lart Lane. That and my wife at the time, I remember she came up with me when I went into the Echo. I don't think it was for the interview. I think it was to meet them before I started, and and I went to pick her up afterwards, and I said, "What was it like?" She said, "Yeah, it was all right." She said, "But there was a fella sat at the bar just talking to a mannequin head that he'd brought in with him." And I was like, "Okay, yeah."
Well, my dad knocks around there quite a lot.
It's fair to say, an eclectic mix back then. But it's just a great. It's just a great place, and I love going there a few times a week now, and just I'm lucky enough in my current role that I get to work from home, and so many great little coffee shops on Lart Lane you can work out of.
That first stint as a student, and you're hanging around with presumably other students, but obviously a lot of Scousers as well. Did you feel sort of Liverpool as a city? Is it friendly? Did you feel sort of
really
ingratiated
friendly
by the
Yeah.
Scousers?
I think the biggest thing I noticed was, and it took some getting used to, was people you don't know talking to you, which just didn't happen where I grew up, and because when I first moved, I didn't have Sky, so if there was, I wasn't covering Liverpool or anything. I was doing mainly kind of Monday to Friday, 7 till 4 or something on the desk at the Echo for the first few years. No sport. But like a mixture of. It was a mixture of page design and sub editing,
right?
And because it was a case of just getting my foot in the door, writing wise, I was doing whatever anyone else didn't want to do, essentially. So if there was an Olympic swimmer that was up for interview, I'd put my hand up. I'll go and do that. I'll go and do the judo, the trampoline, in the darts, at the Echo Arena, and the cricket, the rugby union. So. It was a mile away from doing the football, but it was just a chance to get more experience. But you'd go to the pub to watch the game, and and then suddenly people would start chatting to you. And initially, you'd think, I must be talking to someone else because I don't know anyone here. Yeah. And then you'd realise they were actually chatting to you, and I absolutely loved that. Yeah. The warmth that the people was evident back then.
And so you talked about following other non-football sports. Do you have a favourite non-football sport?
Yeah, probably cricket, to be honest. So I played.
Same.
Yeah, so I when I first moved up, I joined Sefton Park Cricket Club and played there for basically until the kids came along and ruined everything, because cricket takes up so much of your time, doesn't it?
Singing the praises earlier, weren't you?
I love them, really. But yeah, so I not particularly talented or particularly good, but
so where's James Pearce showing up on the cricket pitch?
Batting 4 or 5 and probably third or fourth change.
A devastating innings.
A bit of medium pace, just scuttling it through. Yeah. So I captained the third 11 at Sefton for it must have been probably 5 or 6 years, and absolutely loved it. If anyone. I'm sure a lot of people will know how beautiful Sefton Park Cricket Club is when the sun's shining. There's few places anywhere that I'd rather be than sat in that beer garden on a nice June or July afternoon. So you haven't been able to play as much the last probably 5 years, really, with kids and work and everything else. But yeah, I do love my cricket.
Yeah. Ashes this summer.
Yeah, I've got tickets to I don't think I'll make the squad, but I've got tickets for a few of the tests. Yeah, going with my dad and my brother to one, and with the missus to another one. No, so
maybe Jack Leach looking over his shoulder, seeing James trundling in from there.
I'm not sure I can do baseball.
No, maybe not. Do you fancy the chances?
Yes, I do. You do it? Yeah. It's just absolutely refreshing, and anyone I think who's. When the mess they were in a couple of years ago, the transformation since Stokes took over, and under this coach, so it's just it's going to be intriguing.
All right, good stuff. So 2005, you started the Liverpool Echo, and then was it around 2010 that you were the Liverpool FC?
Early 2011, yeah. So just
Liverpool lead journalist essentially.
So what kind of let me into the football side of things, but actually, ironically, was what a mess Liverpool were in with Hicks and Gillette at the helm. Up to that point, writing about Liverpool had very much been the domain of one person, and that was the Liverpool reporter. But I think it was Tony Barrett, actually, who obviously is now working for Liverpool Football Club, who basically said, look, this is getting silly. You almost need someone to cover the politics of the club and someone to cover the football, because it's just it's just all encompassing. Because
so for context, non-football fans, that's ownership.
So
Liverpool FC.
Tom Hicks and George Gillette, who'd bought the club in, I think, 2007, was it? I think, and they made all these promises about building a new stadium. They wouldn't load debt onto the club. Basically, broke every single one of those promises. Loaded club on the debt. Loaded club onto the
sign Snoop Dogg at one point, didn't he?
Oh yeah. So many cringy moments.
I was still disappointed that didn't happen. But,
I think what Hicks said, his son was a big fan of being a goaltender in football, and just all this they're still, so detached from reality and compulsive liars in terms of the way they acted, and so much of Liverpool's money was actually going on servicing the debt in terms of interest repayments.
Yeah.
The new stadium never happened, and the club was on its knees. It was, the fans were quite rightly up in arms. The protests, the marches that were incredibly powerful in terms of forcing the hand of the bankers and getting them out. So all of that meant
opportunity.
Opportunity really. Just in terms of it was just too much for one person to do.
Yeah.
So then I went across, and then when Tony then moved on to the Times, and then Dominic King was the Liverpool reporter after him, and then after Dominic went, I thought I was in line to get it. And then they actually appointed someone off the news desk, completely a bit left field. And so at that point, I must admit, I thought the chance had gone because, a lot of people, and thankfully it doesn't happen anymore, but people had said to me over the years, sometimes I'd have fans come up to me and say, I can't, I didn't know you weren't a Scouser. Why are you, you shouldn't be writing about Liverpool. You're not a Scouser. And I was
really?
Well, I've been, and I was like, well, okay, well, I respect your opinion, but... this club's been close to my heart since I was like 4 or 5 years old. Like, I shaped being a student around my love for the club. Every penny I had as a student went into trying to follow Liverpool, and like this has been my dream to write about the club. I'd like
this
to
is,
think...
by the way, this is a strong pitch for an honorary Scouser title if I've ever heard one, James. But carry on. Yeah.
But so I'd sometimes get that, and then so other people within the industry would say to me, "Oh, the Echo aren't going to give that job to a non-Scouser, especially with the multimedia stuff just starting to grow. You can't change the way you sound." So I did think the chance had gone, and then as it was, the job then came up again out of nowhere within like 6 weeks. And although there was a temptation to stick 2 fingers up and say no chance, that would have been cutting off my nose to spite my face. It was literally just after Kenny had come back as manager, Kenny Dalglish for the second time, early 2011, and then it was.
So you're like the Rishi Sunak of Liverpool FC reports.
I don't know. Is that a compliment? I don't think that's a compliment in these parts, is it?
Yeah, I don't know. But in other words, so there was a brief time when it looked like maybe the opportunity's gone, and then unexpectedly.
I thought I'd have to. I thought I was even thinking I'd have to do something completely different because it was such a slap in the face at the time.
Yeah.
Because I'd done the job for such an extended period while they were trying to make up their mind what to do. I was, and I did speak to a few people, and because it was the way it was done did leave a bit of a sour taste, but no, it was definitely the right decision to swallow my pride and get on with it and accept it and embrace it for what it was, and then it was a hell of an 8.5 years doing a job that I dreamed of, really, right from kind of the kind of resurgence under Kenny to then obviously him losing his job, Brendan Rodgers coming in, the early kind of issues there, but then that amazing season in 13-14 when they nearly win the league. Then you've got the post kind of missing out on the title slump.
Yeah.
And then the resurgence led by Klopp and all the fantastic days that have accompanied that prior to this season. So it was. I felt very, very lucky to be in that job.
Okay, well we're gonna take a quick break. But before we do, James, we're talking about your knowledge of Liverpool and stuff like that. We'll do a quick quiz, and we'll reveal the answers after the break. So there's 3 questions, James. You don't have to answer them now. What year did the history of the city of Liverpool officially begin? Okay, so what year basically did Liverpool begin to exist as a city? The next one is, what are the names of the liver beds? Right. This is according to Visit Liverpool's website, by the way. Any fact checkers out there. And then the third question, how many Iron Men are on Crosby Beach?
Wow.
How many Iron Men are on Crosby Beach? All right, so we'll take a quick break and we'll be back with those answers and more from James Pearce. The history of Liverpool as a city, when does that officially begin, according to visitliverpool.com?
Well, I know that there was some big anniversary during my time at the Echo, because I remember there was a supplement. So I think it's about 1200. I think I'm going for that.
1200. Okay, the answer is 1207. So I think we've got to give you that, James. I'm going to give you that.
You've got to give me that.
That's a strong start, mate. That is a strong start. Okay, it might get a little bit more tricky now. The name of the liver birds. The names of the liver birds.
Yeah, you've got me there. They got me there. Scylla and Ken.
Scylla and Ken.
Yeah.
It's Bella and Bertie, mate.
That was
not far off, though.
Shot in the dark. Half a mark.
There you go. Now, final question was, how many Iron Men are there on Crosby Beach?
I think about 100.
About 100.
About 100.
Any particular reason you've guessed that, James?
No, I'm sure.
It didn't come up in the break? No one mentioned it in the break?
No, it's just knowledge, Roach.
About
just
100.
Knowledge.
Well, the answer is 100. Okay, mate, the answer is
I am
100.
shocked.
Let's get into some questions. All right, James. We put it out onto Instagram, asking what people might like to hear from James Pearce. I'm going to start with one though. What's your relationship like with the Everton fans?
Yeah, I'd like to think it's fine these days. I don't have an awful lot to do with them in terms of online or social media anymore. And some of my best mates are Evertonians. There's no ongoing issues. I mean, obviously, it was probably a different story when I was at the Echo, because I think just in that role at the Echo, when you're writing solely for Liverpool fans, you're probably encouraged to be a bit more partisan and a bit spiky probably at times.
Was there one particular game, a 0-0 at Anfield?
Coming up to the 10-year anniversary.
Oh, nice. Okay. So, are you doing anything for the anniversary? Or?
Might go out for a bite to eat. Yeah. Put a nice DVD on. It was, where was that? April 2013. So it was the back end of Rodgers' first season. And it's probably a bit of a lesson learned from my point of view, because I probably fell into the trap of probably focusing more on who Liverpool were playing rather than Liverpool's own issues at the time. What did you say? Yeah, so the gist of it was, I mean, like back then you had to write 1,000 words within an hour of the final whistle, whether it was 5-5 or 0-0. And there was very little to go at. Neither team had barely laid a glove on the other one. Two very average teams at the time. And then at the final whistle, Bill Kenwright jumped up just to the left of us in the press box, punched the air and said...
Quite theatrically.
Yes, very, and said, that'll do us. Which I just thought was a bit odd, seeing as I think that result meant that Everton couldn't qualify for Europe either.
Right.
And, they still hadn't won at Anfield, obviously, in that century. So I ended up doing the piece on kind of, how small time it was that to be celebrating a draw when Liverpool were hardly, in a position where Everton surely should be looking to take full advantage of Liverpool's issues. And, I think it was the intro that had upset people, because it was expect the DVD to be in Everton's club shop on Monday morning, which I think struck a nerve, because it was around that time that Everton were getting their Mickey taken out of them for
the Magnificent Seventh DVD.
Things
still out,
things like that. So it was. So I must admit, like when I filed it, I didn't I didn't file it thinking, well, this will create a shitstorm. It was more right, job done. Found something to go at from a pretty dour game. Can go and enjoy the rest of my Easter Sunday, and then woke up on Easter Monday to a senior official at Everton ringing to tell me I was a disgrace to journalism, and that they were going to try and push for a lifetime ban from Goodison.
Oh, okay, yeah. Did they enforce that in the end? Or?
No, I have been back many times since with a hood up. It was literally, I think, the day that David Moyes, it came out that he was about to jump ship and go to Man United.
Oh, okay.
But before he did, he rang David Prentice, who was the deputy sports editor of the Echo at the time, to tell him that I was a wanker.
Right.
So that was one of his last parting duties as Everton boss. There was, and obviously social media wasn't. I think it'd be different now. It would be a lot more extreme now than back then. But even back then, it was pretty unpleasant. There was a lot of like threats and all the rest of it. And I remember getting called into a meeting on the comfy sofas in the Echo office on the Tuesday. It would have been John Thompson was sports editor at the time, and him saying, "Look, you've caused a bit of an issue." And and he actually went on to say to me, "Look, I loved it. I didn't have a problem with it. You know, with exactly what we say. We don't want bland match reports.
Yeah. Sounds a bit like the conversation M might have with Bond. He's gone off on one. You got the job done.
Yeah. You've got to give me a bit of a license. But he then said to me, but I am going to have to tell Everton you've had an official warning.
Right.
I was like, well, why do you have to do that? And he went, well, it's just what they want to hear. So it's the way to get them off his back. So
David Moyes vicariously called you a wanker?
Any
official response 10 years on?
No, he was spot on. He was spot on.
Okay,
I think it's lots of people who'd agree with him.
But
it's funny because like even when I met my girlfriend's mum for the first time, one of the first things she said was, "You're that one that," she was an Everton season ticket holder, and she said, "You're that one who wrote about the DVD, aren't you?" And then going back about 6 years, I was in a taxi having left the Echo office late one night. And usual thing where you get in a cab and the driver's kind of saying, "Oh, you finished work?" Yeah. And it was like 10 o'clock at night on a Friday. And he was like, "You working late?" Yeah. "What do you do?" "I work at the Echo." "Well, what department?" "Sport." And he said, went quiet for like 10, 15 seconds. And he just went, "Do you know that wanker James Pearce?" And I just kind of, I've heard of him. And then he just
went... It wasn't Moisey because the United job didn't last long for him, did it?
He was back on the Deltas.
On the Deltas, lad.
But he was, it was, I just proceeded to listen to him slagging me off for 10 minutes. And then I did make sure he dropped me off on the main road rather than actually in my road, just in case he twigged. But his parting words were, "Well, if you see that Pearce, tell him what I think of it." I was like, yeah, no problem, I will do, no problem.
Nice, nicely played. All right, you've got a few more then. Who do you think the most underrated Liverpool player during your time sort of covering the club?
Well, that's a good question. Underrated. I mean, I must admit, I think, not that he wasn't loved, but I do think Wijnaldum was kind of, I think he's a good example of someone who you only fully appreciate what he gave to the team after he's gone, really, in terms of, and there's so much obsession with data now in modern football, and, there was never any like numbers that people could use to show, look at his pass completion rate or his chance creation or his assists or his goals or something. But he was just an incredibly talented, selfless, clever, tactically shrewd individual that I always felt was so key to what Liverpool achieved under Klopp. And the other priceless commodity was that he was always fit. Just played a ridiculous number of minutes.
Nice guy off the pitch as well.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. One of the
Max's favourite player.
Yes. Yeah. One of the. I remember
Max James is somebody.
There was one time, when I had a bit of a childcare emergency, and I ended up having to take Max, who.
Do you know when Oldham looked after?
It was I had to take both of them, Max and Holly, with me to do an interview with him, and he couldn't have been nicer, and that was they. At the time, neither of them were particularly interested in football, but they were both obsessed with Gini Wijnaldum from that day onwards.
So I'm mainly taking your bad diary management as why Gini Wijnaldum is your most underrated Liverpool FC player. Good stuff, James. All right, then. We've got a few more quite interesting things. Do you think Liverpool were right to stay at Anfield and renovate it, or do you think they should have gone the new stadium?
No, definitely right. Right. I think, I must admit, like going back, because for a long time when I was working at the Echo, you kept getting told, it's impossible. You're not going to be able to redevelop Anfield, all the housing situations, all the complications. And it was a real hot potato that FSG inherited. And, FSG obviously divide opinion and amongst Liverpool fans. But, if you were looking at, the positives, one of the massive ones has to be what they've done to the ground. Because I hated the idea of Liverpool losing that link with their history and tradition. I think it would have been a price worth paying to try and ensure they got back to the top level, which is what other clubs have had to do. Arsenal being a good example, Tottenham. Obviously, their ground is magnificent in terms of the facilities, but you do lose something, I think. And even like recently, I was reading about Chelsea. There's a lot of talk at the moment about Chelsea. Are they going to redevelop Stamford Bridge or move to Earls Court? And I was shocked to read that it was only really Stamford Bridge, Old Trafford, and Anfield that of the kind of the big grounds, if you like, they haven't shifted. And so when you look at Anfield now with that amazing new Anfield Road going up and the main stand has obviously been a great addition. To think that from the start of next season we'll have 61,000 in there every week, and we know that Liverpool will sell that out. It's the perfect solution rather than going elsewhere.
Good stuff. All right, then. It might be a little bit more controversial. Probably not surprised it's been asked. Andy _J_777 and Cara Hanger has both essentially asked you the same question, which is Jurgen Klopp still pissed off with you?
As of now, I don't think so. No,
Right.
no.
What was it, for context, what was this all about? So this is the Liverpool FC manager, Jurgen Klopp. Mentioned that at
it's
the end of
probably
a press conference that you angered him for...
Yeah, so it was after Liverpool's miserable defeat at Molineux a couple of months back, and I think it was the second question of the post-match press conference. I just asked, how infuriating is it as a coach when you've had a whole week to prepare and you see a team start as sluggishly as they did today, and does it, because it's happened so often this season, does it make you reassess the way you prepare them for games? Because it didn't look like they were ready and switched on for what needed to happen. And I was quite shocked when he then said, I refuse to answer your question. You know why, because of what you wrote. And had a slightly bizarre situation where he said someone else will have to ask it. So then someone else basically said word for word the same thing, and then he gave them a decent answer.
And what's it like, Liverpool FC manager says something like that in the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I missed it. In the moment, I was just shocked, really, because I must admit, you kind of know, don't you, if you've written something in the days leading up to it that you're thinking, probably need to be kind of on my toes today because someone might have a sarky comment or a go back at you, and because obviously the criticism, you can't shy away from it. I'm not here just to write how great everyone is, and of course when times are hard, it's definitely the toughest time to report on the club because people don't want to talk to you. People don't like to be criticised. It's just human nature. But in that example, I obviously first thought afterwards was I want to find out why that's just happened, because I couldn't think what I'd written to trigger that kind of reaction. And then when I spoke to senior people at the club, they said, well, actually, it isn't anything you have written. It was actually an article that had been published elsewhere the day before that had upset him, that had targeted, where he felt that had unfairly criticised Andreas Kornmeier, the fitness coach.
Right. So it was the wrong end of the stick.
Yeah. I mean, and then I think someone had then said to him that The Athletic had done something similar earlier on in the season, which I think you had to go back to September for the last time Andreas Kornmeier was even mentioned, and even that was deep within a piece on the injury situation.
Right, okay, yeah. Well, we know then. Don't come for Andy Kornmeier unless you want Jurgen Klopp on your case.
Or either Andreas as well. He's the
Andreas.
Yeah. So it was, I tell you what, it was just a bit bizarre, because I think I wouldn't have minded it if it had been because of something I'd written, because you have to take ownership of that.
Yeah.
But for that to happen when it's not actually anything you've even written, that was quite difficult to take. Yeah. Because then inevitably you get the pile on with social media, and then suddenly it was perfect, really, that 20-second clip for all the different social media platforms, and watched millions of times, and then suddenly you've got your kids messaging you saying, my mate at school says you're getting the sack, and why does Klopp hate you, and all this, and the other one saying, like, is our holiday cancelled?
Well, in the interest of balance, being called a wanker essentially by both the Liverpool FC manager and the former Everton FC manager, pretty good. We've just got a couple of minutes left, James. A couple of questions to get through finally. So, interesting one. People you've met covering Liverpool FC. Who's the most interesting sort of non-footballer that you've ended up meeting through your job?
Well, one of the big thrills for me from the job has been getting to know a lot of the ex-players, and one of the things I love is being able to host Q&A events with, because when you especially having grown up in the 80s with having charged around the playground pretending to be Ian Rush, pretending to be John Aldridge and Ray Houghton and Peter Beardsley and John Barnes, and so then to be able to meet Jan Molby with another great example, to then be able to meet these people. And
you once sent me a picture of Lee Evans.
That was Do you know what? I'd forgotten about that. I was a bit drunk that night. I think, yeah.
Okay.
He was tell you what, he was a lovely fella.
And a Liverpool
Yes,
fan?
a very big Liverpool fan. Yeah. Do
Should
you
we
know
go
what?
with that then?
Let's go with Lee Evans. Let's go with Lee Evans. He was...
Lee Evans, your...
Yeah, my dear friend Lee Evans. I mean, who could forget how close we are?
Fantastic stuff. And final question, James. Who is your favourite Scouser of all time?
Now, that is an easy one. It would have to be, for me, the greatest player ever to play for Liverpool, and that's Steven Gerrard.
Stevie G?
Yeah. I think, having done this job for a long, long time, there's not many people who still kind of like you feel a little bit nervous about speaking to, but even now it's still the case with him. He's got this aura that, I think you can. I never got to see Kenny play in his prime, but yeah, to be there to watch every step of the way through Steven Gerrard and not his career, and not just the heroic feats on the pitch, but the loyalty that he showed as well, and to play during an era where he wasn't surrounded by world-class players, that a lot of those players that came before him, had that luxury. He would have to be my number one Scouser.
The pressure's on. You think, like, when you listen to it, when you're writing a song and recording, you're like, where can this, what could this be on? Could this be on a film? Would people listen to this in the bedroom after a breakup? Or will
shagging.
People, shagging. Or will people listen? They won't listen to us while they're shagging, though.